All right, so with our four objects, we want to start to figure out what basic shapes make up these four objects. So to do that, we're going to do an overlay tracing. Okay, so everybody's got the transparency, and we're going to paper clip it down. Now we're going to use a thin Sharpie, and we're going to find the basic shapes that make up these forms. All right, so we're going to use the blocking techniques here. So I'm going to establish the top of this form right here, the bottom of the form here, and I'm going to establish the line of symmetry, which goes from the top to the bottom. All right, I'm just drawing right on top. The next thing I want to do is, I've got that, I want to know what the width is. So if I kind of use these units of measure, and again, it's going to be much easier by tracing it, of course, but these are the blocking methods that you're going to use when you actually have to draw it. So now, what is the basic shape? Of the 6 shapes that we talked about, what is the most basic shape that we see here? We see it's wider at the top and narrows at the bottom. So if I look at that, I can see it's not a cylinder because cylinders don't have angled sides. It has to be a cone because the lines, if these were to continue down, 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 it would come to a point somewhere down here. So that cone shape, right, if I just use light pencil lines or light pen lines to see that cone shape, I also can see that there is a secondary cone that's made up of this rim, right? So there's like a secondary cone that's a little bit wider than the initial cone. And then I look at the degree of curve from which way I'm looking at it. So I'm looking down on this. It's below my eye level, so I see the opening of it there. And I look at the degree of curve established from the base. And then since it's getting a little bit closer to my eye level, I look at the degree of curve established here. And I have the same, remember, ellipses must have curved edges, and they would have the same degree of curve on one side as they do on the other. The other thing you got to look at with this is, see that dark shape right there, that dark line? That's the thickness of the flower pot. So when I sketch this, I need to draw 2 lines. All right, when I trace this right now, I need to draw 2 lines, the outer line and the inner ellipse that shows the thickness of the form. All right, so I'm not going to draw anything else of that form, at least in this case for tracing. All I want to do is just get the basic shape of the object. So when I draw it, I can kind of reference this when I do my actual sketch. So I'm going to continue on these other shapes the same way, starting with the most basic. Here's the top, here's the bottom, here's my line of symmetry. What's my width? This is a cylinder. So the cylinder is out here, but there's also a little bit of a hip right down here. You can see the bottom of the teapot kind of curves out, a little bit of a hip there, and also it kind of tips in a little. I can see a little bit of the front edge here of the cylinder, and that establishes the same degree of curve here, but it's a light line because it's not a sharp edge. And same thing down here, I'll establish the cylinder. So there's my cylinder. Now, the other shape that I have here is I have another flat ellipse right here, which is that rim. And then this shape right here is one of the other 6 basics, and that's a hemisphere. It's like a dome. And now if you look closely, I've got 2 more shapes right here. There's a little flat cylinder and a cone on top. If I look at the spout, that's actually a tapered cylinder. So if I give myself a line of symmetry for the spout, then I can look at the cylinder shape at the end, and I can see how that tapers, and comes onto the body, right? There's another cylinder where it meets the body and then it comes up and out. This too, I would use a blocking line that kind of runs through the center of the handle, and that is a cylinder that has curved edges, right? It's a cylindrical shape, but the handle has a wide point in the middle. All right, so these are the blocking techniques that you're going to use so that drawing this is going to make it a lot easier. Now, obviously, if I trace this, it needs to be the thickness of that. I can't just make a single line to show that part of the lid handle. All right, I need to make a double line to show the thickness of it. And then I'm going to continue down onto these shapes. So same thing. Where's the top? Where's the bottom? I want to put my line of symmetry in. Now that didn't quite go down the middle. That's okay. Because the beauty of Sharpies is I can use an Expo marker and draw over top of the line and then just take a tissue and erase the Sharpie. And start over again. So the middle of the bottle comes right down here. My first basic shape that I see here of the biggest 6, we know already this is a cone. This has a cylinder. It has a hemisphere, has a couple cylinders, and there's a cone right here. So this one, my biggest shape right here, if I look, is a circle. So when I start to draw this, I'm going to show the width of this thing as its sphere. All right, that's the biggest shape there. So I have a sphere. If I look at the other parts of it, right, I can see these curved lines or these angled lines that tapers from this. The next biggest shape that I have here, if I look at the base, I've got a curve here, and then off of that curve I have 2 straight lines that come up, and that makes that cone shape. So I have the cone under the sphere. If I look at the next biggest shape right here, I follow along the glass edge where that textured stuff is, and I follow this up with a straight line to my line of symmetry, I see that I have another cone. So I've got sphere and cone, so I have 2 cones there. Now I look, this is above my eye level, so the ellipse is curving down, and I've got these straight lines that come down, these straight lines that come down, and that is my cylinder. So that is the easiest way to establish accuracy in drawing these forms. And the last form of this picture, this small picture, this is really a cylinder, but it's similar to what we saw with the mannequin in that it's a tapered cylinder. The width of the top of the cylinder up here, although it's got one other shape, so we know we've got cylinder. There's another cylinder here, thin flat cylinder on the rim. There's actually a flattened hemisphere right here because you can see it's not a cylinder, it doesn't have straight edges, it's got curved edges come around. And then there's another flat cylinder right there, flat cylinder. And now the width from here to here is the tapered cylinder. So these blocking lines are light drawn in to establish that. Now with the little spout here, the spout is actually going to be, I have the cylinder, I have the hemisphere, and the spout is actually a pyramid shape. It's a triangle. It comes off the body of it. So we have pier, right? And then of course I have the rim here, It's above my eye level, so it's going to curve down. And then these three stacked shapes, there's actually a tiny little cone, flat cone right there, curves down. And then I've got three hemispheres that make up those three, one's here, and they all have curved edges. That's a dome, another curved edge, another curved edge. Now the rim here that breaks it up, we've got these two sections, that's going to just be a band, an elliptical band that goes around the outside, because you can see it wraps from behind, and as it gets lower in my eye level, I can see more curve than I can at the top. And then I have the handle, which is actually like a flat rectangle. So there are rectangular shapes that curve down here. All right. So for sketching purposes, I can see that there's another rectangle shape here. There's the handle. This is like a flat rectangular shape. All right. So in order to best see these things, I'm going to do this tracing first, so that when I actually go to draw these things, by looking at the references, I'm going to see the basic shapes that make them up. So this is going to be easier for me to look at when I start drawing them in my journal, trying to get accuracy with scale and proportion.